The last camp we made before everything changed sat under a ring of hemlocks where the lake wore the sky like a made bed. Our friends arrived late, headlights bouncing off trunks like nervous animals. We had known each other since college, me and Daniel, and the other pair Maya and Joel, who finished each other's jokes and sometimes their sentences. We built our fire small because the Rangers watched and talked the way people do when they have already told the stories and now tell the way they told them. In the morning, the rain began, the polite kind at first that makes you think you can hike through optimism. At the trailhead, the wooden register held pencils on strings and comments in a dozen handwritings. On the corner, fresh and stubborn, someone had carved 17 MC. Our site was 17. My chest did a small, treacherous thing. Daniel was beside me, comparing maps. He didn't see my face, and I didn't show it to him. That is a kind of lie. We took the ridge trail up and the old logging road down. The lake appeared and disappeared like a coin trick. The rain apologized and then returned with backup. Maya sang bad 90s pop to keep us buoyed. Joel told us what mushrooms not to die from. Daniel walked ahead with a steady rhythm I had loved back before we knew how to hurt one another with tidy domesticities. At the overlook, I touched his arm and said, "What does MC mean?" He said, "The maintenance crew, mountain club," and grinned like a man who can still trust a joke. Back at camp, the ranger truck idled by the pump. A woman stepped out, face brown from work, eyes quick. Her name patch read, Klein. I nodded toward the register. "MC Kitty?" I asked. She smiled. "Micah Klein," she said, tapping the name with 2 fingers. "Me? I shouldn't carve, but nobody reads pencil when it rains." Her gaze flicked to Daniel. "You brought the throw rope?" Daniel lifted his pack. "Coiled and ready." My stomach dropped and landed somewhere damp. Throw rope? For what? We followed Micah down to the east cove where the lake curved in like a listening ear. "The rocks here make a false path," Micah said. "People step out, ankle twists, panic happens. We've pulled 3 this summer. If you're willing, you can help me reset the wade line." She looked at Daniel. "You said you know knots?" "I do," he said, and glanced at me. He had not said he knew Micah. He had not said he had been up here on Thursdays with the volunteer crew. He had not said a lot of things he was about to have to say. We set stakes and ran bright cord where the water was safest, and Micah taught us to measure the depth with a pole that had blue tape marks at knee and clever. Daniel worked silently, moving the line with a care that made me want to forgive him for things I had not yet heard. When we finished, Joel stomped his boots and said, "I can feel my toes again," and Maya said, "I can count mine," and Micah said, "I can't promise nobody will ignore it, but now they'll have to decide." Decision, I thought, is a better word than control. Back at the bear box, I found a note under our pot. 17, blue bandana on the line if you can stay after dark. M. The handwriting was utility neat. Daniel saw it when I did, which is a form of mercy. "It's about the rescue team," he said quickly. "I should have told you." "You should have told me," I repeated, because sometimes the echo is the only tool you have to keep from turning the conversation into a demand. After dinner, the rain gave us an hour, generous as a break in an argument. We walked to the cove with headlamps and saw the blue bandana tied at chest height on the cord. Micah waited with a borrowed canoe and a plastic crate. "Float test," she said. "We need to check the line in the dark because panic happens in the dark." She pointed to the crate. Glow sticks, towels, patient blanket. The words patient and blanket touched in my head and pulled at something brave. We trained until the sky forgot it had ever been blue. Joel played victim and cursed convincingly when the water found his sleeve. Maya logged times with a pencil she kept in her ponytail. Daniel and I moved in a rhythm we had not used on anything except arguments for months. Call, respond, throw, pull, steady, breathe. When we finished, Micah said, "I could use you on Thursdays," to Daniel and then to me. "And you. Your voice carries without scaring people. That's a talent." At the trailhead, under the wet register, Daniel finally told me the part that mattered. "A month ago, a kid went in," he said. "I was here with the crew. We got him out, but He looked at his hands. "I panicked at the end and threw the rope short." Micah finished it. "I've been coming back because I don't want panic to be the last thing I gave to this lake." He swallowed. "I didn't tell you because you would have said, then don't go back, and I couldn't risk that you would get your way. I wanted to be angry, on schedule. Instead, I felt something slower and more dangerous. The recognition that I had fallen in love with Daniel because he is the kind of person who cannot stand the last chapter being wrong. That trait has made him a reliable husband and an impossible one. You still should have told me," I said, and it was not a verdict, only a place to start. The next morning, the couple in Site 19 asked if we had a spare spoon, and we gave them 2 because spoons travel in pairs like truths. Micah came by with a clipboard and a bruise on her shin that looked like a country. "You 4 are good," she said. "You want to run the cove once more before the weekend rush?" We said yes because saying yes often saves you from the small, mean no that wants to live in your chest when you're tired. The rescue that came was not dramatic. A man in his 50s stepped off the rocks, said oh, and went to his knees with the surprised dignity of someone who had never fallen in public. We threw, he grabbed, we walked him in. Micah wrapped him in a blanket that made him look like a burrito nobody wanted to eat. You okay? She asked. He nodded. I thought the rocks were closer, he said. They weren't, she answered, and the man laughed as if that solved it. That night, under a tarp, we played cards and listened to the lake make its knife sounds against the shore. Maya fell asleep mid-story with a sentence outstanding. Joel stayed up to talk about a job in another state he had not told Maya about yet. He wanted to ask our advice and not be judged for what he already knew he would choose. I said, lead with the leaving and then with the love, and he sighed like the tent had just learned about gravity. Around midnight, Daniel and I walked to the register board. The carving 17MC had swelled with rain, sap beaded like a small admission. He ran a thumb over it. I didn't carve it, he said. I know, I said, and realized I did. But you knew what it would look like to me. He nodded. 3 Thursdays I almost told you. Then I thought, if she says no, I will go anyway, and I don't want to be the person who goes anyway. We stood in our headlamp cones, which made a small theater for truth and a terrible stage for lies. On the last day, we paddled the shoreline and watched a bald eagle fail at fish and then try again, which felt instructive. At the takeout, Micah handed us a printed flyer, Clean Up Saturday. I can't pay you, she said, but I can teach you how to sling a rock without breaking your foot. Daniel said, I like all my toes, and she said, then we've got room to grow. Back home, the routines tried to pull us like tides. Laundry, emails, the argument about the pan with the loose handle. On Thursday, Daniel left a note. Hollow Lake, back by 9. My throat closed and opened, a door deciding how much to let through. I wrote under it, bring 2 bandanas, I'm coming. We joined the crew. We learned to build cribbing with logs that look too small until you make them handle weight. We learned the names of the volunteers' dogs before we learned the volunteers' last names. On the 3rd week, a storm knocked 3 trees across the West Trail. The crew leader looked at Daniel. You saw this coming? He nodded. The soil was already talking. I watched them work and felt pride without the extra sugar of ownership. That is a grown-up thing I recommend. In late summer, when heat made arguments easier to start than fires, we went back to the register where the carving had faded to a memory you could rub away with a glove. Micah had hung a laminated sign over it. Leave no marks, leave a line. People follow the last thing they see, she said when I raised a brow. Give them something worth stepping after. Daniel signed the register with his full name, first and last, and added, if you are afraid, we will teach you. Camp ends with the same choreography everywhere. Someone rolling wet straps, someone losing a sock in plain sight, someone arguing with a zipper. We loaded the cars. Maya and Joel hugged too long and then exactly long enough. I tucked the blue bandana in the glove box and did not flinch when I shut it. Daniel started the engine and turned down the radio before it had a chance to tell us how to feel. On the highway, he said, I'm sorry. Me too, I said. For what? For believing I could build safety by forbidding risk, I said. For believing I could build love by making it small enough to manage. He nodded once. I'll still mess up, he said. I require that you do, I answered. We laughed and the road joined in by being willing to take us where we said we wanted to go. A month later, we brought my mother to the lake. She never camps, but she walks. We showed her the cove. She touched the line with one finger and said the thing she says when she likes a plan. This looks like it knows what it's for. We signed the register again, this time together. DLD, no hearts, no promises we couldn't keep in the rain, just names, legible and present. Joel took the job. Maya did not clap. They learned to schedule honesty the way you schedule weather windows for long hikes. Sometimes they missed it and sometimes they did not, and each time was the whole story for a week. Micah broke a finger on a loose rock and came to the next cleanup anyway with a splint and a thermos of broth. She handed me the thermos when my voice went small. Drink this and shout later, she said. I drank and shouted and scared a raccoon away from the cookie bag. On a night that smelled like wood smoke and relief, Daniel taught a teenager how to throw a rescue bag. The kid missed 4 times and then grabbed his own head and laughed in pure despair. Try again, Daniel said. If the 5th time works, the first 4 are research. Hollow Lake in fog looks like a decision the mountain hasn't made yet. We stayed on shore and practiced the only thing worth practicing on those days, how to wait without inventing trouble to pass the time. We framed our permits and put them by the back door because leaving the house ready became its own kind of promise. On the frame we wrote, take water, take rope, take the truth. In October, when leaves made the trail sound like applause and warning at once, the Ranger District posted a photo of the new crossing we helped build, stepping stones pinned with rebar, a hand line taut. Under it, the caption read, Community Armor. I printed it and taped it to our fridge beside the grocery list. Milk, eggs, courage. We took a winter skills class and learned the quiet layers. Wool first, then the one that keeps the wind from memorizing you. The instructor said, don't dress for the trailhead, dress for the shadow you're going to walk into. I wrote it in my notebook and in my marriage. When the season closed, Micah left us the leftover flagging in a bag and a note. For gardens, for birthdays, for marking the path through arguments. We used it once. 3 pink flags across the living room to show the route to each other when words were not cooperating.